Thursday to everyone. FYI, we have got a notice here in Durham that some interesting weather's on the way. The trees were moving pretty harshly, so if I freeze up, just let me know, and I'm happy to repeat whatever that portion of it was. Nevertheless, we are here for part two. How many people acted on some of the things that you learned from Parkway? Emojis, chat box, come off mute, let me know. Anything that sparked you that you said, let me start on this now? I can kind of hear someone, but not all the way clear.
I'll go. Shanika Simpson with Next Generations Leaders Learning Center out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I started on authority because that just seems to be kind of like, you can't have the bacon without the flour kind of thing, so to speak. So that's what I started on, just to volunteer.
That is amazing. Thank you for that. And so since Shanika was bold to break us out, the authority, how long does it take for the process, and what's the price of that application fee?
Good, very good question, because I didn't get the application fees. I didn't get the fees, which definitely will be needed for balance sheets and overheads and things to that nature. However, I'm in Wisconsin, so the application is going to be taking possibly anywhere from 30, depending on what I do, anywhere from 30, no more than 45 days for me, but I'm not for sure if it's just standard across the board.
Great. Thank you, Shanika. What about anybody in North Carolina, since Fayetteville State's in Fayetteville? Anybody in North Carolina that's jumped on top like Shanika? I love it being bold.
I have not authority. The cost was $300 for it. And I guess for it to be completed, I would say probably about 30 days anywhere between. It just depends on how fast you get all that information back, that bill C3, the UCR. And I think if you had the bill C3 and you had your insurance, you were good to go. You can work on the UCR afterwards.
You're on it. I love it. Okay, so somebody tell me, because we're talking about insurance, how much is that insurance? This is our recap. How much is that surety bond? How much do you need?
$75,000.
$75,000. Absolutely. You get a nice Porsche with that, but I'm just saying, for the sake of business. $75K. All right, so we're moving on. Who remembers where we left off? Because we're picking up directly in that spot. If not, it's okay. I'll give it to you. I just want to make sure that
we left off with you labeling or listing the four sections for contacting shippers and carriers.
That's it. And I saw Mr. Hall pop in there and said cold calls. I think that's what it said. Let me click it really quick in the chat. Yes. So another word for it is prospecting. So we went through the prospecting of getting we compared it to the folks that work in the center of the mall, and they say, would you like to try this? Would you like to try this? Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, sir. How many no's they get? When you hear the word no, what should be your first thought?
I'm good. You vaccinated?
Say again.
Huh? You been vaccinated?
Next opportunity?
Next opportunity. Absolutely. It's the next opportunity. It's not the end. Somebody is talking about vaccinations.
They ain't making us get vaccinated yet. Hopefully I'll be out by the time they...
Perfect. Yes, next opportunity. But somebody said follow up. Excellent. How are you? When you want to follow up, where are you going to write that note that you need to follow up?
You write that in your notes section.
Note section of the what form?
Prospecting.
Yes, you guys are amazing. All right, so here is the point when we get to yes. When we get to yes, they usually say, send me your information or send me your package. In this package, this is what they're asking for. I don't know how many remember from last time, but guys, please hear me clearly. When they say, send me your package, give them directly what they want. This is not the time to be bells and whistles and brochures and bios. I got a call today about an opportunity. And this is not even in trucking. This is more project management, but it was with the government. And the person sent a whole, I don't know how many pages it was, a whole thing of paper, it was ridiculous, but it was all about themselves. So much so that the opportunity was almost lost. So please, 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 just simply send what they're asking for and nothing else. So, all right, next, when they say this package, this is what I want you to write down. This package needs to have in your surety bond, which is just the top page to say that, hey, this is your company, we've got it approved, etc. And then, excuse me, 1 second, there's somebody at my door and I don't know why, so I just make sure that my garage is closed. So surety bond, you have to have that first page of your insurance that says you're approved for it. Shows the amount, shows your name of your business, the name of your company, your name, contact information like mailing address, etc. So they know you. The second thing that needs to be included is a W-9. A W-9 you simply can download from the IRS website. I highly recommend that every year when you're going through and you're updating things at the top of the year, that's something that you want to keep on hand because you'll have to use it in various ways for your company, but this is one way. So your W-9. This is also how you're going to be used because you're going to be paid as a 1099 because you're a contractor. This is needed for tax purposes. The next one, your authority. They don't need the whole entire thing. Just the one page, the cover page that says you've been approved. This is your MC number, your license, basically. So your MC license, so your surety bond, and your W-9. The last thing that could be included, it's not mandatory. However, if you have it, it puts you above the competitors, and that is your contingent cargo insurance. What this simply means is that you're being covered. What's a good way to explain this one? If for some reason something happens, you're saying, even though I'm not carrying the freight, I'm the freight broker, so I'm ensuring that it will move. Like this will be covered in me financially, I will cover it. It's not a mandate. It is not a requirement. It is a step above. It's equivalent to folks saying I'm a certified freight broker. That is not a requirement to be a freight broker, to have that training and to have that certificate. That is an extra step above. Everybody understand me? Because I don't want you to think, oh, I gotta go do this. You don't have to do any of those things. Those are extra. But I will tell you an example of what has happened before. So say you're calling and you ask to speak who's in charge of shipping and they transfer you, let's use Paul Williams again. And when you get there, it says shipping Paul Williams. And you say, hey, I have trucks in your area all the time. I would love to know how to become a part, how to help you guys move freight. And Paul says, send me your package, and he names those 4 items. And you say, Paul, I will send you my package, but I'm gonna tell you up front, we don't have that the contingent cargo insurance. If Paul has been trained by his predecessor that those are the only companies they move freight with, you automatically have lost that deal. Does that make sense? So it's a personal preference if you want it or if you don't want it, but I want you to understand the difference. It is not a mandatory thing by the governing bodies that you have. It's just sometimes shippers have been trained a certain way and then they want that. I told you only send what they ask for. So let's break down these documents. The MC, your authority, who do you get that from? Who do you get your authority from? Yes, FMCSA, absolutely. So you want that in there. When you think of your surety bond, that's your carrier payment. So you already know about that. The contingency, okay, so the cargo contingency insurance, guys, that's another thing you got to decide if you want to pay for it too, right? So it's not the cheapest thing, but it's not the most expensive thing. So remember what I said yesterday, Tuesday, I want you to keep your overhead low. Think of pricing as well. If you're in a financial state where you can say, I can pay this and it's not that bad compared to always get 3 quotes. Don't just go with the first one, go with 3. 3 competitive quotes to ask people what they're offering. If it fits, then go with it. All right, so another thing that they may ask you, not all shippers do, everyone's different, but if it comes up, you need to be knowledgeable of it, is a rate sheet. Has anybody heard of a rate sheet before? Emojis, text box, maybe not kind of stuff. If not, this is where you want to take some copious notes. A rate sheet. So the rate sheet, it's really invalid by the time you fill it out because things change so frequently. Shippers know that, but they ask you for this because they want to kind of get a gauge of what you want to charge to move their freight. Does that make sense? They know that gas is changing, that diesel, they know all these multiple things are taking place. They're asking simply because they want to see where your ballpark is. Give me 1 second, I saw something in the chat box. If you're an MC, you have to have insurance to cover your cargo. You do anyway, this is an added, that's why I said it's an added feature. The cargo is an added feature. The surety bond is what covers you initially, correct. All right, so in this rate sheet, you have to complete it if they ask for it, or you have to send one over. You create your own template. These are some of the things that you would want to keep in there. So you want to have the contact information for you. So your name of your brokerage, your name, your phone number, and the email. It's important too, if you have a website, to go ahead and include that, because it's easier for them to track back to you when they need something very fast, or to refer you to other manufacturers or other shippers that's in their network. They can easily just share your link. So you may want to make sure that you include that. For the shipper, you want to include their information. So like their phone, their fax, their address. Make it personal. This is why we say this is Paul Williams. Put Paul's name. Why is that important? When you start moving so much freight, you may remember the name of the company, but you may not remember the person that you actually had the conversation with. So if you go ahead and put that on there, it goes into your Rolodex or your index of things, and you can make it work from there. Load specs. Load specs are very, very important. I'm gonna break these down. Load specs will start with commodity. Commodity is the type of freight you're moving. So that could be anything from lumber, steel. In the pandemic, it could be medicine. When you hear what the commodity is, which is what they won't move, it will help you know which type of equipment is needed. The same equipment is not used for everything. And depending on the equipment, it's going to help you base what your rate should be. Does that make sense? Everybody still with me? I'm hoping that I'm not frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Also on this rate sheet, you're gonna make sure you put your origin. The origin is the city and the state for pickup. The city and the state for pickup. It's gonna change later when we talk about the rate per mileage, okay? So the origin is the city and the state. Why is that important, Diana? The person you're on the phone with, Paul Williams, may be in Atlanta in the warehouse, but the origin of where this needs to be picked up could be somewhere in Arizona. Do you see how attention to detail has to be super superior in this moment, because you could write down the wrong thing and can jack up your whole formula?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? It's not where I'm at, it's where it's at, the freight is at?
Where the freight is at is the origin, correct, where the pickup is. Or remember, origin, pickup, and it's by city and state. Got it?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Equipment. Let's talk about equipment. I'm going to put this picture up for you guys so we can talk about equipment. There's all kind of equipment in in logistics, but these are the main three. The main three we have is a flatbed, a dry van, and our refrigerator truck, which we call reefer in this space. So out of these three, it's going to really determine what you want to make that rate. So when we think about these equipment, we think about the flatbed is going to basically have the heavier things, the things that are very bulky, like machinery. As you can see, it's going to have a trailer on it, and that trailer is going to determine how long it's going to be. You can have a 48 footer or a 53 footer. The reason when we asked them first what was the commodity, because the commodity is driving which type of equipment we need. So as you can see in this image, there's a tarp over it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's a tarp, that's an extra fee that you can add on in this rate sheet. Does that make sense? Each thing is kind of a la carte, but it builds itself up. If you look at the dry van is most popular. That's the one we're all going to see most on the road, the one you're going to see the most on the load boards. But that's for anything that needs to stay protected. So you can think about like furniture and computers. those types of things. And then the last one is your refrigerated one, which we call the reefer. That's where you're gonna store like your produce, your flowers, your medicine, and your food. And here's one that people don't often think about. But guys, that's the one you're gonna store your bodies in. And when I say bodies, yes, I mean human beings. I'm gonna give you examples of what has happened because of the pandemic. When we went on a national lockdown here in the US back in March of 2020, I think is when we locked down. If I'm wrong with the month, you guys can still follow me. There became a high pressure of realizing that funeral service, there was so much they can do with capacity, right? Because there's not like, we have Fortune 500 companies. You don't have Fortune 500 funeral homes. It just doesn't exist. So the capacity was maxed. And so what we realized very, very quickly is we got to find another way, because the number of people that are dying from this ridiculous virus, we got to do something with the bodies. And so different entities start putting out RFPs, which are requests for proposals. And the proposals were simply asking for reefer trucks. Why? Because they're refrigerated trucks where they can at least put the body when the person has transcended in this truck. They can load them up, they can pile them up in the body bags. And then when the right person comes, the family member, they can make their arrangements, can say where the body needs to go, they can extract it from there. There is so much that goes on in the reefer truck. You know what else a reefer truck is really, really hot for right now? Because of how our economy is shifting. Anybody want to take a guess?
Vaccines?
That is one. CBD, yes, hemp.
I was gonna say him.
That's it. Listen, I told you guys on Tuesday, I literally had seen where they are cutting it off the stalk from the farm and loading it on the trucks. That's a reefer truck that's needed for that because of the temperature control. Of course, it's ran by diesel, but as you saw on the image, the backside is where the cooling system is. And so when you're considering what type of equipment you need to use, think about those three. Those three are your main three within this industry. It can shift, it can change, but those are the main ones. So when we're still working with this rate sheet, don't forget that. Now we want to think about that tarp. You have to be really, really careful with finding from the shipper if the tarp is needed, because you need to make sure your carrier has that type of equipment. You would hate to secure a load that you now can't move because the carrier doesn't have the proper equipment, which means the stuff can be damaged, which means what? Somebody's gonna be held responsible. And it's probably gonna come back on you because you're the in-between person between the shipper and the carrier. So keep that in mind. Don't forget these important questions. Now let's talk about the RPM. Everybody wants to know about this one. This is your rate per mile. When you calculate your rate per mile, it is from the origin to the destination. The origin where we're picking up, the destination where we're dropping off. When we calculate this number, we do the origin by the state only. The state only. Earlier, when we were talking about load specifics, we were talking about the origin of the city and the state of where you pick it up. But when we're talking about rate per mile, it's only the state. Everybody clear with that? Perfect. Okay, want to make sure we got it. The second thing is there's some load boards I want to share with you. There's all kinds of load boards. If you remember on Tuesday, I said you can get load boards from $40 all the way up to hundreds of bucks. It really depends on what you want to pay and which one is best fitting for the brokerage that you are creating. It's again, personal preference. You can look on multiple ones of their sites. You can look at tutorials and you can figure out which is best fitting for you. So Internet Truck Stop. Internet Truck Stop is one. DAT is another. These are just ones that are super popular. Again, your choice if you choose to use them. If not, why do I care about a load board, Diana? I'll tell you why. If you don't have your own carriers, because remember we were working on that prospect list and you were talking about your owner operators, like people you knew within your network or someone else knew, and they were looking to have loads and they wanted you to be their brokerage. Well, sometimes folks don't have those. So what do? They've got to upload these things to the board so that they can find a carrier that's willing to take it. Now, the information that you're getting from the shipper that you're putting into your package that you're gonna load up to this load board, there's one thing you never wanna put. When you're loading to the load board to find a carrier to move this freight, never put the commodity. Can anybody guess why? This is like a rule of thumb. Why would you think you not wanna post the commodity? Hilarious, Shanika. Does anybody want to take a guess? It can be random. It's okay.
Maybe
Okay.
because they'll charge you what they want to charge versus you being able to make your own charges.
That's a good assumption. Mr. Hall says it changes. What changes, Mr. Hall? The bidding war. It can be a bidding war, Sapphire. Mr. Hall, what were you talking about changes? I'm interested in that. Oh, guessing. Okay, cool. Not a problem because I did ask you guys to guess. I'm gonna tell you why. I think the carrier would be able to, one second, I'll be able to tell who the shipper is and maybe bypass you. Getting warmer. The reason you don't want to put it is because if you put on there it's lumber, and there are some folks like, I don't even want to deal with that stuff. Like, I don't want that on my truck. I'm not interested. Those folks automatically are not going to call you to even find out about it. So you've missed out on a potential deal to move it. When the reality is, if you don't put the commodity and you just post it, they'll call and they'll say, hey, I want to know about moving this load. This is where I am. This is what equipment that I have. Let's talk about rates. The rate could inspire them to go ahead and put this lumber on the truck and move it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So think like a mind of a trucker. I remember I was in a meeting maybe a month and a half back, and the guy who was trying to broker the deal wanted trucks, and he said to the owner operator, what are some places you don't want your trucks to go? And the guy immediately said the mountains, right? He didn't want the mountains because he didn't want the extra wear and tear on his trucks. All of his trucks were the reefer trucks, the refrigerated ones. And for some reason, he must have had a bad experience or something, but he lost out on what could have been a dedicated lane simply because of the terrain. So be really, really mindful of that when you're posting to the load board. So who can guess what the industry standard, this can be higher, you can always negotiate, everything in life is negotiable. But what is the industry standard for a broker? What percentage do you think you're going to get off of this transaction based off the industry standard? 8%. What else you got? Industry standard, not Diana standard. 20, 15. Any other guesses? 15 to 20? The industry standard is 15%. 15%. That can change because everything is negotiable. Remember, you're trying to negotiate the best rate for that movement from point A to point B, the origin to the destination, because your percentage comes off of that. And the more money you make for the carrier, the happier they're gonna be. So let's think about this. There's a thing called desired gross margin. And that's the difference between what the shipper agrees to pay and then what you pay your carrier. So again, that's your percentage, but you can break it down into like what that number needs to be. So as you're still talking about this rate sheet, right? There's other things you can include on. Remember I talked to you earlier about add-ons? Like, oh, I use the tarp, that's an extra fee. There's a thing called extra stops. This is a question you need to have with your shipper. You need to make sure you're really, really clear. Sometimes folks say our origin is here and our destination is here, our pickup and our drop off, but they don't mention all the stops that's needed for the extra freight that needs to be picked up or dropped off along the way. The industry standard is $50 per stop. Now, when I say $50 per stop, remember the origin and the destination is already accounted for, so you cannot count them. I mean, if you're going from Atlanta, it's the origin, it's a pickup, and then you are supposed to be going to Florida as your destination. Well, if for some reason you gotta stop in Mississippi, that's a stop. So now how much can you add? $50. It's right. Can't do from the origin and destination, but you can do in between. That is one. Another charge. What other add-on charge do you think you can add to your rate sheet when moving freight? Tolls. Gas. We're going to get to gas, absolutely. Rest period. I'm seeing if anyone's guessing the second one I've got listed for you. Well, actually, somebody did. Somebody said gas. So, of course, fuel surcharge. So, fuel, there's two ways to check the fuel, right? Because you're always using diesel. We talked about at Bright Markets. You're always using diesel for these trucks because that's what they require. You can't put 87, but it's not going to work. So, get over that if that's the thing. So, usually most owner-operators, and even the bigger companies, they have gas cards, or they call them fuel cards for the truckers, right? Because you never know where you're going to end up. You never know when the weather's going to change. You don't know if you're going to get stuck in traffic and you need to refuel. These are things that we can't manage, right? Things that we can't control. So there's two places you can always check for what the current fuel charge is. One is the Department of Energy. They post on their website every Monday what the average rate is. That's Department of Energy, and they post every Monday on their site what the price average is for diesel fuel. Another one that you can look for is, I'm gonna have to spell this one out. Somebody can put it in the chat, or maybe I can put it in the chat. Let me see, give me a second. I can type it in here. It is EIA.gov/petroleum. And you can screenshot this one or whatever you need to do, write it down in your notes. But this is another way for you to stay up to date with what the current fuel rate is for diesel. Boom. Oh, it says it went to Chelsea. Hold on a second, guys. I wanted to go to everybody. All right, everyone should see it. It should be in the chat for everybody. Those are your two guiding industry warranted spots to check for what the average fuel price is for diesel. Everybody see it in there? You got it, screenshot it, write it down, whatever you need to do. Those are resources you need to hold on to. There's another thing that you can add into your rate sheet, and that is a minimum load fee. Now, your minimum load fee can work really in your favor. It's really based off the mileage. So if somebody called me and said, if I was on the phone with the shipper and I said, well, we do have a minimum load fee and we only do a minimum of 300 miles at a rate of $700, right? So that's around $2.33, you round up $2.34 a mile. That means anytime that shipper calls me and he understands that I have, because now we've built a relationship, that we have this standard, if there's anything less than 300 miles, I'm still going to get that same rate because that is what we've put in place. So think it through if you want to have any minimum load fees. It could really work for your advantage for shorter trips because you'll be able to maximize your dollar amount. Make sense? Perfect. It's a little trick of the trade, but something that you can add in there that can work in your favor. So that's all that we have for the rate sheet. You can create your own on Word, you can Google ones and download those PDFs and make them easy fillable. Totally your choice, but they are available for you. And you want to have them in your folder. I am so sorry, something is terribly in my eye. So you need information to properly figure out what your rate should be. And these are the highlights for that. We just talked through all of them, but these are the ones that I want you to take away as a cheat sheet. You know how when you're on your at your desk and you got all this stuff because it's just got too much going on, but you need that one little sticky note that's your cheat sheet to go to really quickly? Because sometimes you get on the phone with a shipper and the shipper is saying, this is where it's at, this is where it's going, what's the rate? The recommendation I have for you is to say, give me 30 minutes and we'll call back and provide you the rate for that. Because remember, I just named all those different things that go on a rate sheet that you got to think about. Here's a short formula to use. Consider this when calculating the origin, the destination, the weight, commodity, and equipment type. I'll say them again. The origin, where you gotta pick it up, the destination, where you gotta drop it off, the weight, because weight matters, right? You know, we have weight stations all around the highways for a very simple reason. We have the commodity, like what are we toting? Like what are those items? And then the equipment type. Something's in the chat box. Please, do you have a sample rate sheet that you can show us? I don't do that intentionally because it's your own creation. This is customizable to each person's brokerage form. That's why I said you can Google and get examples of them, but it's very customizable to what you're going to use in your company. Sure thing. We talked about the different types of equipment. Everybody understands them. So when we talk about equipment, guys, really the only thing that changes is the trailer. So you'll see sometimes where folks will have what we call low backs. Those are the ones that have a step down. They're a little lower. That's for our heavier equipment that may show up at a construction site that requires a crane to remove it. That's why we need to be very knowledgeable of what needs to be transported. When we spoke earlier about the hemp just doesn't move. Yes, there's a truck. Yes, there's a truck that's moving it, right? But there's back sides of that legalities have to be in place. For an example, if someone is moving hemp, there has to be a notarized document from the agency that's requested it to be moved. Because if that truck driver is stopped by the police and they do not have that notarized document, they can be ticketed and fined. And then their stuff can be seized. That's how important it is for you as a broker. You got to make sure you know all of these dots are being dotted, all the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, because you can get into some serious legalities. And we don't get into business to get into legalities. We get into business to serve people and to make money. Are you guys still rocking with me? You still want to be a freight broker? Perfect.
Yes,
perfect.
ma'am. Can you repeat that last part about that particular form?
Yes, so when you're moving things that are sensitive that can be used for illegal purposes, there are certain forms that have to accompany it. One of the things for the hemp is a notarized form, and that form will be notarized and it will say it's the authority of so-and-so to be transported and to be moved. You usually would have that from the shipper who's requesting for this freight to be moved to somewhere else. The driver, the carrier, never has to worry about that. That information will be provided to the broker, and the broker will make sure it's in the packet that gets to the carrier, so that as they're transporting it, they should be taken care of. So that's why we're the in-between person to make sure everybody's safe and secure.
Okay.
Yeah, got it? Good? Perfect. Outstanding. All right, so let's take a moment and let's think about marketing. We know what it is to talk to a shipper. We know what it is to have our business focus out. Tuesday, we learned business foundations, and then we learned the business of what it will take to become our own authority. Now we know how to talk to shippers, how to build our own clientele, our own database. Now we want to talk about our marketing piece. Now our websites. This is a challenge that I see with a lot of people that's in logistics. The website is so flashy, it's overwhelming. Like there's pop-ups everywhere. There's so many colors. It's so much stuff on a website that it takes forever to load. Have you ever been to any kind of website and had that kind of experience?
Yes.
If you have, people like go somewhere else, right? That's what they're going to do to you, and you miss out on all of that clientele. So I like the KISS method, which we say in the military. It's to keep it simple, and I'm not going to call anybody stupid. That's just what they taught us in the military. So keep it as simple as you can. We want to make sure we got our contact information. Of course, the name of the company. We want to have a good, solid phone number. We talked about having multiple phones because it can become kind of hectic. Make sure that number is correct. We want to make sure we have visible on the website an email address. I will not forget the day I met a gentleman who was a retired, I don't know his rank. He was a Marine. Great service, had it ready, guys. I'm talking about like over a decade in the civilian world. But guess what? The business card that he was passing out at the networking event had the wrong email address. You know how much business he lost? Potential business? Because the email address was wrong. So make sure the email address is right. Make sure that you're using something that people can easily remember as well. I told you that my company's name is Crown for Success Global Consulting LLC. When I did that years ago, it made sense to me. The title's still great, but that's too long to put as a handle. So we just use my name, because my name everybody can remember and they're gonna come back to it. So think about that when you're creating those email addresses, whether you're doing them through a hosting site or whether you're creating your email through like a Google Business, which I told you is like $5 or $6 a month. Keep that in mind. You do wanna have some type of interactive form on your website. Can anybody guess what type of interactive form you would want on your website as a logistics company, as a freight broker, excuse me? First of all, who's the kind of people that's coming to your website?
Shippers and carriers?
That's it, shippers and carriers. What kind of form would you need for a carrier to have as an interactive form on your website? If you meet somebody and you say, hey, I'll be interested to learn more about your company, make sure you go on my site and you fill it out. An invoice of what they want to ship. Not on your website. You don't want them to have that much access to you.
Would it be the kind of equipment they have?
Yes, and that will go on a carrier data form. So that's your form. Again, you can Google these because they're customizable to your company, but that's when you're getting their information. So you can add them to your database. So you can put that form. The easiest way for you guys to do that. I broke up, sorry. That's their carrier data form is what you want to have them fill out. Because that's how you add them to your database. Because there's going to be like their DOT number, their insurance, all those kind of things. The same things that you got to give the shipper, you need to know that this carrier has followed the right process. They're legal and they're still in standards, is in standing with the government. Because sometimes people allow their paperwork to lapse. You don't want to have one of those trucks out on the road carrying freight that you brokered because you're now the responsible party because you were supposed to check that in advance. Does that make sense? It's kind of like the thing when kids say, I just did it because so-and-so was doing it. Yeah, but you were the one that's supposed to do better. You were the oldest. You were left in charge. Same scenario, but for with trucking. On your website, you can also put available loads, right? Because once you start building these relationships, guys, folks come to your website often, day, night. You can start putting your available loads. Let them flash at the bottom or flash at the top, and people can start reaching out to you directly. And then you don't have to spend as much as your time on the load board. You can use it if you want to, but now you've started to build enough relationship with shippers and carriers that your own database is driving for you. We talked about the email. I told you that carriers and shippers use this every day. You remember that time we talked about prospecting? A form of prospecting for shippers and carriers are going to brokers' websites. That's why a website matters. I've heard people say, I don't want a website. You don't. That's potential business that you could lose out on. Because you know who else goes to websites? Dispatchers. Which is a whole nother thing. But they use websites as their way of prospecting too. So that's more business that can keep coming your way. Make sure, guys, that your website is something that can also be uploaded easily on a mobile device, because people always have their phones, right? Don't have one of these websites that's so thick in the weeds that it won't load on a mobile device, because again, you can take your stuff out. Keep it simple. Make sure another thing on your website is easy navigation, right? So if you have this is just an example, you have your website, it's like a main page, right? Your main page, your home page is what they call it. You may want to have a tab for shippers. You may want to have a tab for carriers. You may even want to have one for dispatchers. So they know exactly where they're going and what they're looking for. Create an easy navigation. It has been proven when people have to do more than 3 clicks, they leave a website. You don't want to lose that kind of business. I told you, make sure that it uploads quickly and make sure that you're providing the information for your target audience. Make sure it's crystal clear. Most of the drivers that are owner operators are behind the wheel. So if they're behind the wheel, they don't have time to be looking and scrolling. They're doing good to find you. So make sure you make that super clear. So you need, for your website, you need your domain, you need a design, and you need hosting. There's so many websites you can build for free now. There's Wix, there's Weebly. If you want to pay for them, there's GoDaddy. There's so many. If you visit like the local community college small business centers, there are always people that are teaching on the different ways to build websites. The classes are absolutely free, phenomenal speakers, if I must say so myself. I have taken multiple classes, I have taught multiple classes. So make sure you check them out in your area because these things will help you as you're building your business. Social media. Now listen, while social media can be very heavy and very time consuming, it can also be very, very helpful. I just found out about a new trucking company from one of my down the line cousins just started. You know what that means for me? Because it was on Facebook, I'm reaching out to say, hey, do they want to be a part of my logistics company? Make social media work for you, but don't put it on your personal account. Let's put it as a business account and drive traffic to it. And as you drive traffic to that, make sure it's crystal clear on there, your contact information, and you drive them back to your website. I think that's really good. Is when we talk about those interactive forms, you can do those with like a Google Forms. When you're creating your forms, think about ways that you can just capture people that may be interested, right? They may be interested in a way that they don't have 12 trucks, but they got one truck, and they really not sure how to work with a broker because they're just starting out. So maybe your niche is working with new truckers that are coming into the industry. Maybe your niche, I just learned this girl the other day, that her niche is she only moves freight for the, what is it called? Like with NASA, what do you call that whole industry? Aerospace. Thank you, whoever came up with me, because I was really struggling. She only moves freight for aerospace, but that's where her money is, right? It's in that niche. Another thing for a broker that I've heard of that I thought was great, right? Somebody that didn't want to do it full time but still wanted to be active in the industry. Guess what they did? They only did like the crazy hours, meaning like they only did at night, they only did weekends, they only did holidays. So when people were in a crunch and they needed assistance, they like, hey, I'm stuck in Atlanta and I need to get back home to New Jersey. Can you find me something? That was their niche. So make sure whoever your target audience is, there's a space for them within your website. So it's targeted and they'll know exactly where to go. And so when you're on the social media, it leads back to that. Directing the traffic. Twitter is a great spot for brokers. Why? Because you can post whatever the load is, right? Twitter's nothing but words and so many characters. You don't have to put an image. But if you have a following that's following that, you have a specific hashtag, they can easily upload that Twitter or refresh, the Twitter feed to see where you got loads at. How cool is that, right? Make technology work for you. Someone asked on Tuesday, what software do we need? This is free. Social media is free. Make it work for you. Stay focused when you're posting on all platforms because you want to kind of make it consistent if you're doing it across multiple ones so people can see, but understand that each one serves its own purpose. Instagram would be great if you have moments that you're at a site and you're able to show what needs to be moved, right? Because now people can see it as a visual. You can give a couple of, not really all that you will put on the load board, but just some snippets, and then folks can determine if that's of interest to them. Stay focused. Another thing that people do not like in 2021, however, it works in brokerage, newsletters. Can anybody guess why you would need to be doing newsletters and who the newsletters need to go to? Nobody? Oh my God, do you guys not get newsletters in your emails? I still get newsletters from different companies. I'll tell you why. Yes, advertisement. You want to stay on their radar. Do you know how many people call a shipper per day? Asking can they get a load? There's so many people. It's kind of like when I went to, I went somewhere the other day to eat, I think it was. And it was a to-go thing. Was it? No, I take it back. It was at the at-home retail store. I don't know if you guys have an at-home where you live, but it's like they sell home stuff from outside to inside. It's just a big home store. And the girl was checking me out, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And she said, and I said, "No problem. You see so many people a day." But the reason I was asking, she remembered me, so I didn't have to pull out my military ID for my discount. But I'm saying that to say, if that one lady could remember me from a local store here in Durham with all of these people, how do you think a shipper remembers from folks that call him him or her all the way across the United States? Newsletters, stay on their radar. When you're prospecting, guys, and the shipper says not at this time, you say, "Okay, thank you." If you say, "Hey, how's your day?" and they say, "Oh, I'm just exhausted, just came back from vacation with the kids," in that note section, put vacation with kids. So if they still say no, the next time you call and ask to speak to Paul Williams, you say, "Hey, Paul, we spoke a few weeks ago. What do you think about taking another vacation with the kids?" Now you may start sticking. You have to find ways to connect with the folks to build these relationships so that you can keep the business going. Does that make sense? And the newsletters is one of those ways. So when you're doing your newsletters, make sure that you provide information, what's new, what incentive you have. If you're branching out in new areas, meaning like maybe you only used to have carriers that did East Coast, now you're in the West Coast or the Midwest. Keep them up to date with information on your services. Maybe you started out when you first was talking to them or working with them, it was just you. Maybe now you have broker agents. So now you're building out, you're expanding your company, you're building your brokerage. You want to keep them informed, stay on their radar. The frequency is no more than twice a month. No more, because you don't want to bombard. Somebody came off mute. What'd you say?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. Did you have a question?
No. Go ahead. Sorry, I was talking to one of my children.
Oh, no worries. So you want to make sure that you keep them alert and abreast. If you change your mind, right? So say you start and you're just taking like any type of freight, right? Because we do that, right? Because we want to learn the industry. We want to build relationships. We'll move any kind of freight. But when you get to like the girl who wants to just do aeroscience only, you want to add that into your newsletter, right? Because you want to start asking them for referrals. Who else do they know in their network that may specifically be moving this? I know some folks that only move heavy equipment. So that's for the military, that's for construction, that's their thing. Did you even know that there's a whole market for the folks who move mobile homes? Did you think about that? Like, these are so many options of freight that has to be moved, and it has to be moved with a certified carrier. You're the one to find the carrier to answer the call for the shipper. On your website, guys, you can also include a link for people to sign up. When they sign up, they're signing up for the newsletter. So it may not even be someone in the industry. They may just like you and they want to sign up for your newsletters, but you never know who knows who. That could be a really, really good key. I'll give you an example. There was an opportunity that came to me with the Department of Veteran Affairs to do some work. And I did not have anyone to subcontract it to, because it wasn't something that I could physically do, but it was in our realm of work within our project management. I reached out to someone else that I met from the logistics industry and said, "I need someone that can do this type of work. Do you know anyone?" Do you know they referred me to somebody? And this person sent all of the images of their work. They've been featured in a magazine. You just don't know. So don't forget to keep that place on there where you can add for sign up for the newsletters, because that's how you meet your connections and you can continue to grow. When you're networking, think about the groups and the organizations you can join from your brokerage company. So there may be Facebook groups, there may be associations. The same way we think about our fraternities and our sororities, the same way we think about our faith-based organizations, there's organizations everywhere. I just met a girl Tuesday at 2 p.m., maybe 2:30. She met the person she needed to meet for the connection off of a motorcycle group that was on Facebook. But it changed the trajectory of her life. Think about what associations will guide you to where you need to be. So you're thinking about people that are owner-operators. Where do owner-operators hang out? Where do shippers hang out? Is there a national shippers conference once a year? Are there shipper conference summits? Think about where they will be, the people that you need, so that you can be in that place. And when you get to those places, whether they're virtual or in person, what do you need to have with you to make a lasting impression? Does that make sense? Everybody still with me? We're pushing through. Perfect. All right. I think somebody came off mute. If you need me, just let me know. Okay. All right, perfect. Another thing that you can do, guys and girls, women and men, is thank you notes. Why thank you notes? Because a thank you note to a shipper, a thank you note to a carrier, says that you have business. And when you value someone's business, they want to do more business with you. So the person that is always left out for thank yous between the shipper and the carrier, who do you think the person is that's left out that we don't even acknowledge in this equation that we should be saying thank you to? It's a very vital role that this person plays. The trucker, the driver. So often the driver is if this is not an owner operator, they are overlooked completely. Someone asked about the average day that's coming up. I've got a slide for that. They are completely overlooked. So if you can find a way to acknowledge them and let them know that you appreciate them, you change the trajectory of how they want to work with you. So I think about Christmas. I think about any type of holiday for any kind of reason. You know how we have the National Administrative Professionals Day? Find a way to make your own truck driver day and make sure that you acknowledge them. Now, when you acknowledge them, if you're physically gifting them with something, make sure that something has all of your business information on it. Why? Because you are always promoting your brokerage. So make sure the name, the logo, the phone number, it doesn't have to be a lot, but make sure it's something they can use. I've seen a lot of folks use lanyards. I'm kind of lanyard out, but other folks love them. So what's best applicable for the industry that you're serving? They love handwritten notes. They love gift cards like anyone else. So when we think about the average day of a full-time broker, this is what we see. An average day starts at 6:30 a.m. You're answering incoming calls, you're checking the load boards, you're updating loads, you're reading and responding to emails, and carrier call-outs for available equipment. Carrier call-outs is a real thing. It's good that's why it's so valuable for you to have your own database of people or folks within your reach to make sure that this load gets transported to where it needs to go. 7 a.m. to noon, shipper calls for new loads available. That's why I said you make relationships with that shipper, right? Because sometimes you get to a place where they call you. You don't even have to call them, which is really, really great. So you're also receiving calls from carriers because they're like, hey man, I need my trucks moving. They've been sitting for 3 days. What you got for me? You're watching the load board to see what's a good fit to take out, what's applicable. When that person fills out, that carrier fills out that data carrier form, that's where you're learning what they want, what routes they will take, what's best fitting for them. Call outs to carriers as new trucks are posted. Of course, everybody needs a lunch break because we're not robots. So you break, have you a good lunch. Then we come back between normally 1 and 3, and we're prospecting. We're setting up new accounts, taking calls from shippers and carriers. Prospecting never stops. It is ongoing. If you're doing this as a full-time occupation, day, night, day after day, prospecting has to take place. From 3 to 4 p.m., you're calling existing accounts for new and next day loads because you have to prepare for the next day, right? You just don't go to bed and you wake up and you're going to have all this business. Preparation is the prerequisite for success. That is one of my quotes I put in my first book, and I wholeheartedly stand by it. Preparation is the prerequisite for success. And then from 4 to 5, you're posting loads, you're taking calls from carriers and shippers. This is all in preparation for your next day. And then 5 p.m. until you're taking calls from carriers and you're preparing for tomorrow. I would say if you want to screenshot this, do that. Whatever you need to do to write it down. This is an average day. This average day is taken from multiple brokers within the industry, doing research with them to see what has worked best. So the folks that have had over a decade in this is what we have concluded is the normal schedule. Anybody have questions about that scheduling? Good? Perfect. I want to to show you guys another image. This is one that you have been asking for. This is one about resources. And when we're talking about resources, we talked about the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, that's the FMCSA. That's where, of course, you're filing your application to get your authority. May I have your quote again? Absolutely. It's preparation is the prerequisite for success. Preparation is the prerequisite for success. Surety bond and form BOC3, we talked about those in our first night together, as well as our unified carrier registration. The DAT, Internet Truck Stop, and TMS are all load boards. These are load boards. Remember I said about load boards is based off of how much you want to spend and what is best for your company. So as you're looking on there, make sure you go through each one of them. You go through the tutorials. You watch and you click on various things and see which packages are best for you. Some folks do really, really well. They can do the really low ones or the free ones because they don't need all the extras. Some of them have built in them where they would do the rate for you, which is always great, rate calculators. So make sure that you really, really look them through and through to make sure it's the best fit. I've promoted and I will continue to promote YouTube. Some things you don't have to spend money on. You just need to sacrifice your time, or not even sacrifice, you need to invest your time to learn from people that are already doing it. Many folks have asked, they have sent emails to Sarah and for me, and so thanks Sarah for keeping all those and sharing them with me. These are the 3 that I'm going to share with you for freight broker training for certification. The first 2 I highly recommend, as I have insight from both of them. The third one is just kind of one that's just on the market, but I don't know anyone who's went through it. So NR Swanks is a lady out of Texas. I've had conversations with her. She's a really great lady, but what she's done is she's taken herself to over a 6-figure income. She might be at 7 figures now with her logistics company. As a result of her being able to move so much freight in a short period of time, she has now mastered it where she has a training class. She even has, guys, check this out, opportunities on her website where you can purchase all in one. All in one meaning that whole CSSA and the security bond and the form BOC3. She'll take care of all of it. You can buy a package from her where her company takes care of all of those things, the UCR and everything. So they get you up and running so that you can operate. They have the trainings for freight broker certification. So at your free leisure, make sure you Google her, NR Swanks is the name of her company. I've already texted her this morning and told her that I will be sharing her information with you guys. So she is prepared to see that. Another one is Udemy. Udemy is a website where freelancers and business owners can post their information of a training. One that I highly recommend there is Irwin's Logistics. He has been in the industry probably over 20 plus years. He has a freight broker certification there. So that was the one that I would highly recommend. And then Learn Freight. I do not know anyone who has taken them, but I do know that they have payment plans and they are on the lower price point of having the options to learn, for the certification. So take a picture of this, write it down. These are options available for you on that end. Looks like we got something in the chat, or that's just Sarah and stuff prior to each other. Okay, perfect, you know what I mean. And then I also want to share with you guys that this is a rewarding career, right? Moving from freight is rewarding, or brokering freight is rewarding. Why? Because you help the economy. Everything that we consume, everything that we use is because someone has moved it. Years ago, we only used to use by horse and buggy. Then we transitioned to where we were doing things by trains. And now we're at a place where we have trucks always on the road. Amazon is working on a digital truck, or automated truck, which means, and the pallet ones are actually on the road now, which means that someone in some place is managing this thing on the highway. So I say to you, if this is something of your interest, to get in hard, make it work for you for where it currently is. Where it will go, we don't know, but we know logistics has to take place. There is a big push for folks to get into the imports and exports, which is another part of logistics. That could be that could be your niche for freight brokering. I really want you to think about where do you want to be within this industry and why you want to be there so that you can maintain your internal motivation and inspiration. So I'm opening it up to you guys for any questions from these 2 days of anything that you may have. It may not even have been these 2 days, but anything that's been burning concerning freight brokerage that you may have as a question.
Diana, I put the file for that slide in the chat, so they can go and download it directly from there.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Instant access. Thanks, Sarah.
So I had a quick question.
Sure.
Just like being new, really new, because like I said on Tuesday, it's my husband's thing, but I'm trying to get into it because that's just where we are and sounds like that's where we're gonna be. Is it super difficult to learn? I'm coming from like a nursing background, so this is completely different from, I hear the lingo and I've been hearing it forever. So, but as far as like just getting started and learning, is there a big learning curve?
This is what I'll tell you, Courtney. Build it and then we'll come on. Your hardest part is the building it. Because if you build it right with the right prospecting, with the right business foundations, then you just begin to work it. And you can work it to a point where you now have people that you train that work it and now you just oversee it. So the hardest part is just getting all these forms, making sure we don't miss deadlines, paying the fees, figuring out what works best for us. And then it becomes a well-oiled machine, kind of moves itself. It becomes so efficient that people start running the business from their cell phones and they really can be like out at the grocery store and they're so efficient, they can broker a deal while they're checking out for groceries because they've learned it well enough. So don't let the lingo, don't let the upfront stuff startle you. If you're really interested in it, I believe that you can do it.
Thank you. I have one more question. The authority, is that the same as it is for a trucker?
There is still an MC form there is a form with the same FM, the Federal Motor Carrier Association. It's the Safety Administration. It's the same folks, generally the same application. There are a few differences from a broker and from the driver. So you have to still make sure the MC number has to be attached to that direct company. Does that make sense? Can your trucking? Okay, perfect. Can your trucking company and freight brokerage be under the same LLC? Remember we talked about the umbrella effect? You can utilize that in the trucking too, right? So this may be my parent company, and these could be the things that we're operating in. Again, I'm freight broker certified, but I've never used it. You know why? Because I learned from being at the yard with the guys and listening to conversation. It was more beneficial for me to own a logistics division within my consulting and project management company. So that's what we did, which helps us in a whole different way to help more people to move these freights with opportunities they probably would have never had before looking at a traditional load board. So be super creative in that. Very, very good question. And let me give you guys this too, so that you can have it in your, let's see here. If somebody has a question, you can totally ask it while I'm pulling this up for you. It's just contact.
I wanted to know if, say for instance, just looking at it as coming into the actual freight broker, are you able to dispatch and freight broker, or can you not do both because it's a conflict of interest?
You could, but it wouldn't make sense for you to do both.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be better to pick a lane and function in that lane, but I will tell you the major difference.
Okay.
A freight broker requires you to have all these things that we went through when we talked about the foundations of having your own authority. To be a dispatcher, you don't need that. Dispatchers follow a whole different path. It's a whole lot lighter that doesn't have all these requirements at all. You don't need a surety bond. It's a totally different path.
Understood.
So
Thank
if you want to do something where you to get into it and you want to move fast, then the dispatcher may be something to consider and look into because you don't have to have all this upfront overhead.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, the thing is to keep a low overhead so that you can actually make a profit. Oh, and another resource, guys, I forgot about this one. Wake Tech Community College, because they are now doing their freight worker certification all online virtually. So Wake, W-A-K-E, Tech Community College is through, Wake County is within Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, that's just one of the places because they have multiple campuses. But there you go. Thank you, Sarah. And I will tell you that Wake Tech is a great school. I have done multiple trainings with their small business administration and talked to multiple people within from their board to adjuncts, a great academic institution. And so now they've made their freight broker certification all online. So you can be anywhere and take advantage of that. Perfect. What other questions, thoughts, comments? What are you brainstorming? Nothing? We're good? All right. As they say in the good church, if all hearts and minds are clear, Sarah, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to,
Excuse me, I had a question. I'm not sure if you were hearing me or not. I think my mic was mute.
Sure, go ahead.
My question is, like, I see a lot of trainings that's out here, and I don't know if it's reputable or not. I'm trying to launch off, like the first lady said, she's switching careers, and like, I'm just skeptical about like just giving my money away to a company that I don't know is reputable. And I'm going to get the knowledge that I need to launch the freight business up and running, like get it up and running. So I'm just having times like going through information to figure out what training to take. Because some people say you need training, some people say you don't need to pay for it, some people say you need to pay for it. So I'm just confused.
Sure. So it's, again, being freight worker certified is not a requirement by the governing body. But if you do choose to do it, it's just another additive that you have. And the books that I listed on that reference sheet, the resources sheet, the NR Swanks and the Udemy Irwin's Logistics would be my top two that I would recommend, because I personally have had access to both of them, and they break it down. It's not something they just wanted to do to make money. They're reputable. Their profit margins show. The last one that's on there, the Learn Freight, is a one that's known. I personally just don't know anyone who went through theirs. They are the least expensive. I think theirs is $299 that you can pay up front or all in full, or you can break it down to monthly payments. But those are the three that I had on there, as well as the Wake Tech Community College. And Wake Tech, just like any other college, can't afford to bring someone in to do a certification because their brand is on the line. So they have to make sure it's a qualified person to administer a certification through it.
Okay, so there's a program in Atlanta, and they're charging $2,300 for the training. It's a week. I think it's a week. Yeah, it's a week worth of training, and they teach you hands-on, like how to be a freight broker. And like, it was referred to me by my cousins because I have family members that truckers, and they're kind of like backing me up in this whole career. And I didn't know if you heard about this particular company. I was trying to find the name before I asked the question, but
if you find the name, I'll try to see if I've heard of them before. But I can't think of any training that's out of Atlanta that stands out for freight brokering. Now, if you said some other industries, I could co-sign on it, but I don't know any that's immediately coming to mind for freight brokering out of Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not saying it's not good, I'm just like people I've been exposed to.
Okay. All right, that was my question. It's in, I found it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I just found the email. It's in Douglasville, Georgia, and it's called, it just says Freight Broker School. It doesn't have like a name.
What's the name of the company that's offering it?
That's what I was looking for. I'll just shoot your email. I don't want to hold up anybody's time. I can't really, I thought it was in this is just the hotel, amenity, graduation,
Oh,
something.
okay.
Yeah, this is just the hotel they want you to
Yeah.
book with.
Let's definitely look into their testimonials because people often tell the truth when they write in black and white instead of face to face. So see if you can find any testimonials. Check them out on the Better Business Bureau. This is what I'm noticing too, guys. So please use your money wisely. There are a number of people who stand up things as businesses, but when you go search them on the Secretary of State for whatever state they are, or Better Business Bureau, excuse me, they'll say that last 3 times. You can't even find them as an existing company. Like there is no documentation found for them. They rip you off. You don't do those things. Do your research on them before you invest your hard-earned money.
And here's the name, I'm sorry, it's Freight Mover School LLC.
I don't know them. They may be great. See if they have any testimonials or people that's taken their course that you're able to speak with, though, to make sure it's worth the money that you're paying. Be very wise with your money, guys. Overhead low. Great questions. Anyone else while we're still on here? Don't be shy, don't be bashful. This is career options.
I have one last question. So I know about dispatching, and I know that these two are different. So there's no need to try to figure out. Isn't it sort of one and the same though, except for all of the legalities of it, as far as like basically you're dispatching load, but you're not even paid for that. You're getting paid in a different way. But are you learning in a sense in the same way from origin to destination, and it's like teaching you in that way, or no?
So, if I'm understanding the question correctly, they have 2 different lanes that they're occupying from a dispatcher versus a broker. This broker is this person that can come and show you that I've got surety bond. They've got all these extra things because it was required. The dispatcher goes and learn what they need to learn. They operate immediately and no one's questioning them because all they're doing is dispatching. So think of a dispatcher from the space of, remember back in the 90s, guys, when cabs were super, super popular, when we didn't have Uber and Lyft, and the dispatcher would pick up the phone and thank you for calling TNT Taxi, how can I help you? Like that's what dispatchers are doing in the trucking industry. They're just dispatching. So they don't need all this extra stuff. So if you want something of a lower weight, not as much stress to start up, they're not one and the same. They have 2 different roles because each lane is different in logistics. There's some overlap, but their centralized focus is different. The broker, you got to deal with shipper carrier. Dispatcher is on this phone and I'm sending it out.
Okay, they act just as stressed though. I can say that.
Yeah, it depends on the organization. You're very, very, very right. I've seen some that have ran so smooth that you don't even know that it's dispatching because it's that cool, calm, and collected. And I've seen some that are so hectic that I don't want to do business with you because if you're acting this way on the phone, I can't guarantee the process is going to go smoothly enough that I want to involve my people.
I agree. Okay, thank you.
What would you say is the best way to stand out among the competition? You have minimum to 0 incidents to report. And I apologize, it's starting to get dark in here. I'll turn on the light for you. You have minimum to 0 incidents to report. You have testimonials, and you have your own plethora of people that specifically want to work with you. People thrive off of that. People thrive off numbers in general. So if you can say we moved 13 loads of freight in the last 30 days, wow, what company is this? You're standing out because you're beating the others amongst data. You've got professionalism, that your truckers know how to show up and they're timely. They beat the times that they're supposed to be at these sites. Nothing's ever wrong with the freight. The people are friendly. They have customer service skills. Those soft skills and professional skills far exceed anything that you could spend money towards. Can you please text us the names of the Broker and Training Institutes? They were on that resource that Sarah posted and that I posted on a thing. Sure thing, you're welcome. Any others?
What's your recommendation for the bus load board program, I guess?
Miss Miller, to tell you the truth, I think they're all kind of equal. It really just depends on what you need. If you're a person, let me give an analogy to explain, to give my reasoning, because I don't want to seem like I'm being distant and can't answer the question. But you know how some folks have to get the new iPhone every time one is out, a new one is released? I'm not that person. I'm cool with the current version that I have, unless the phone's just so old it ain't working. That's how load boards are. If you're a bells and whistles and you want automation and you want rate calculation and everything all in one thing, you're gonna go with a load board that you can have a premium package and everything's in it. You gonna pay for it, but that's your preference, right?
What do you use?
I don't use them at all because remember I never use my freight broker certification. I own a logistics division in my company. So we take a whole different path. I broker deals to move direct lanes of freight. So for an example, if I had an owner operator that had a box truck, which is not any of the three equipment that we spoke about today or during our time, I would broker a deal where we would become the project manager over a 1-year contract that for the 1 year, they would move freight from X to Z for this Fortune 500 company of this type of product, 4 days a week with 3 drivers, XYZ. And we would get paid from it monthly because we handle the administrative aspects of that as a project manager. So I don't do the traditional load boards because my area is different. I have the knowledge to do it. I'm certified to do it. We've got paperwork to support us. It's just not what I chose to do once I learned more about the industry. And it works really great with us since we're in construction. So you have to figure out your niche, what'll work best for you, because I can't sit here all day and be on the phone with a shipper and a carrier. It doesn't work for my business setup. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, it doesn't work with, even with my staff. Like I prefer for them to be out to do other things. So I don't use the load boards. I have friends that use them. They definitely like the DAT one. Matter of fact, the DAT one is the one that they use most. DAT Power is their most popular one.
Okay. And there's one that's 1, 2, 3 load board?
Say it one more time, right?
There's one that's called 1, 2, 3 load board?
I've never heard of that one. I'm not familiar with 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
The interstate one, not interstate, the internet one that I showed you that I put on your resource guide, and the here, I'll put it up one more time for you guys. The DAT, the internet, truck stop, and the TMS are the top 3 that I know folks that utilize.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Quick question. I did hear you speak on the logistics side. My spouse is a truck driver. I have family members in the business. I feel like a complete beginner when I should know a lot more, but I'm trying to catch up. But needless to say, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine that is in the business, very, very intelligent, fairly young lady. She started, fairly young. Pretty much, for the freight broker side, I guess the difference between the logistics side, I don't want to go too deep into the logistics because I know this is not what this training is about, but is the authority the same or how does, she tried to explain it to me, but I guess, like you say, you have the training and you're certified across the board with everything, but is the logistics side authority the same as, and I'm halfway done filling out for my authority through the FMCSA. Right now, I have to go back into the application because I timed out. But with that authority, if for instance, my company gets going by next month, because of course I know it takes 4 to 6 weeks, and you can't get anybody on the phone right now. I've been calling for days to try to see if I can pay for expedited. I'm ready. Exactly. I think the phones and the computers are sick right now. But I'm wondering, and I guess it's a little bit of greed for me to ask this, but I'm wondering, with that authority, would it be equal to the logistics side, what you were just speaking of that you do, or would I have to go and get a different type of authority?
So it depends on the type of logistics that you're doing. So for the logistics that we run within our logistics division, we funnel all of those things through a trucking company. No, excuse me, through a brokerage company. So our brokerage carries all of that weight. I'm a project manager. I manage projects and broker deals. So we, as my Crown Princess Global Consulting project management consulting firm, has its own layer of insurances and certifications and, service disabled owned veteran owned company, woman owned, like we have our own host of things because that part we funnel through that company because they carry that weight. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That was
So
wondering.
one thing about me, I'll tell you guys, is I'm super creative. I don't do things the traditional way. The way I wrote my first, traditional, I'm going to follow the rules because I don't wear orange. I only wear orange in Ralph Lauren, and I serve the reentry community. But I'm very creative of how I can maximize an opportunity based off of my knowledge. And when I was in the military, I was the 92 Alpha, which is an automated logistics specialist, which means I work in a motor pool. I worked with these trucks and these equipment and in warehouse and with inventory. So I took that knowledge of what I had and understood what I could do capacity wise with me and my team. And I had to structure something that would legally still cover us to operate in the way that needed to be carried out according to my vision. Is that clear? So I don't want to confuse people, but that's how I had to structure it to make it work for me. Because if not, I would have removed myself completely from logistics.
Okay. Because there was one tricky question. I was filling out the application. It says something like, are you operating a freight forwarding business? And I went to Google because I got stuck there and I don't know. I was saying to myself, is this a yes or a no? I think I'm going to come back to this. But I was like, okay, I'm thinking freight forwarding is something slightly different, but technically that is what brokerage is. So I'm like confused,
No, you would say no, because if it was freight forward, then you would know exactly that that's what you're doing and that's what you're aiming for. So when they ask you on those questions, like what is your role here? Are you an owner operator? Are you a broker? Are you a dispatcher? They would name it of what you're aiming to do. So no, you don't have to invest too much time there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. You guys are amazing. What else you got while you're thinking of opening these companies? Hopefully some of you start us soon and you'll send me an email and be like, guess what? I'm rocking and rolling. Good. All right, Sarah, back to you.
All right, so I'm gonna thank you for doing this series for us. It seems like a lot of people are really interested in it. Doing one of our better series this past year. So thank you for holding this for us, and I'm going to put my information in the chat. Again, please go check out the other classes we have that are available. They're all no cost to you. We have the transportation series starting up. We have a Google class starting. The women's conference is coming up April 17th, and Diana will be there for the women's conference. So you
all
come
day
over again. And so I'm gonna put this here in the chat for you all. And please, I'm gonna send out the recording of this class. I'm gonna try to do it tomorrow, so bear with me. If not, it'll be Monday, but I'm gonna try my best tomorrow to send this recording to everybody that attended tonight. So with that being said, thank you again, Diana. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and you all have a good night.
Thanks, guys.